people are going to be furious. Hello, everybody. We are live. This is Based with Des and Hiram. I am your host, Carissa Des. Call me Des.
And I'm Hiram. We got a special guest today. I'll let Carissa introduce our special guest.
You can.
Well, we have Michael. You know what? Let's let Michael introduce himself. Michael, you introduce yourself. Tell us what you're doing on our podcast. Why you decided to give us your time today.
Certainly. My name is Michael Savage. I'm located in Oregon and the author of Witchwood: The Harvesting.
Great. And is that your author name, Michael Savage? Is that how I could find your books?
Oh yeah, you can find me on Amazon, Kindle, and printed books too, and Barnes and Noble.
Amazing. Could you tell us a little bit more about your books?
Well, Witchwood itself is about alien abduction.
Okay.
And it has about facts that every single day, 700 people around the world, on average, go missing without a trace.
Yeah.
That is very mysterious. And so today we will be talking about extraterrestrial, about aliens, whatever you want to call them. And so what we do on our show is we talk about stigmatized topics, and we want to normalize these topics. Like we should be able to talk about all of these things in our communities. So and we were just talking about how just talking about aliens and all of that is a very stigmatized topic. Like people may judge you or think you're crazy for having certain beliefs, but I've seen some crazy stuff in my life, so I'm open to anything, really. And I'm open to hearing people's stories on the topic, and I'm excited to learn more about the research that you did and your background on the topic, Michael.
So, yeah, Michael, you said you started by telling us that around 700 people go missing every single year without a trace.
Every day.
Every day. Whoa, that's even worse. I thought you were talking about annually. All right, so daily 700 people go missing without a trace, and I'm guessing that you feel like part of that is linked to the existence of extraterrestrials. Could you tell us a little bit more about your research in that aspect? Like maybe start with, how would you? I'm a noob. I've never heard. I'm totally first time really delving deep into aliens and stuff beyond just watching movies. So how would you break it down for somebody like me, these disappearances and how they're related to extraterrestrials?
Well, I've been studying this for about 20 years, and I've seen thousands and thousands of videos and photographs, including several hundred, 500, 600 witness reports, including abduction reports. And you have to take quite a bit of time to weed through the false narratives, the made-up stories, the disinformation that's put out there, because usually it's only about 5% of the stories turn out to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that even earlier this year, the U.S. government finally came forward and said, yes, we have these pictures of aliens, and what they gave us as evidence was pretty paltry compared to what they have.
So you think they held back the real evidence?
Oh, absolutely, and I understand why, because the world that we have now, the narratives that we've been fed throughout history would turn the world into chaos.
Well, I was kind of surprised that once the government admitted that there are extraterrestrial or, there are UFOs, unidentified flying objects out there, things that they can't explain, things that surprise them, people didn't seem to care. They're just like, oh, there's a lot going on in the news right now. So we already knew that kind of a thing, That was very surprising to me that people didn't seem to even care about them admitting that.
Well, if I can, and this is where I want to hear what Michael thinks. So I did read a little bit about this because, like you, I thought, what? UFOs? And they just admitted they existed. Nobody's batting an eye. What I learned was that what they released was really preliminary in terms of what we understand, is really going on with these UFOs. They're UFOs, not as in like alien UFOs, because we all kind of think UFOs are aliens, but in this case, they're just simply unidentified flying objects. So it could be a lot of things. What's unique about the UFOs that the Department of Defense presented to Congress is that they happen to move faster than supersonic speed. They move in ways that we thought were previously impossible for at least the technology that we have available in the U.S. government and stuff. And so there's a lot of theories, including like supersonic drones that move as fast as some fighter jets and look like they're these UFOs because of the way they move, and they could be some kind of intelligence that's been developed by a government that won't release their secrets, and so they look like alien stuff to us, but they're really just advanced technology. But the thing is, people don't get too excited because although they came up and they said we know there are things in the sky and we can't identify them, they didn't say they're aliens for sure. You know what I mean? They're just like they move weird.
Because they don't know.
Tell what they are. Yeah, we don't really know. So I don't know. Yeah, well, Michael, what do you have to say about all that? I know you don't think all the evidence they presented is probably legit, but I mean, give us an elaboration. Take it away. Take
Well,
it away.
usually if it's a close encounter of the first kind, that's of just seeing an object in the sky, and actually quite a bit of them can be explained to aerial phenomena, natural phenomena. But there's also a lot of vehicles out there that have actually been from man-made, such as something you probably heard of the TR-3B. Those are the 3 triangle lights that a lot of people see and have witness of. I mean, you can find all sorts of videos on them online, and they show up every single week.
And do you have any like sources of information or like somewhere that people could look at some of these videos or pictures? I think that'd be a good start.
Oh yeah. Well, nowadays we can just Google anything and go online and find them out. But of course, with the problem with CGI coming out, you do have to weed out what's been faked and what's actually real. There's a good site now called Third Phase of the Moon. They like to go through on YouTube. They like to go through the videos, and some aren't. You can't defend what you see because it's completely mysterious, and there is no way to fake it.
Well, what's crazy is when I was live streaming the protests, it was just so wild because there were tear gas canisters and things thrown, and people thought that it was a movie set. They didn't even believe that. I was live streaming there. Like, it's just really hard to prove these things are actually happening until you see it.
Yeah.
And even if you do see it, it could be something man-made that you can't explain.
You got to remember that there's been a lot of wall paintings throughout history. There's been medieval paintings with UFOs. There's been mass sightings that were recorded back in the 15th century by hundreds and hundreds of people. And today we're living in a really strange world where pretty much everybody is carrying a phone, a cell phone, and a camera on them with video capabilities, which wasn't something that existed 20 years ago.
True. So
absolutely.
I did want to talk a little bit about actually a lot of it. This is what I'm actually most interested in, is the history of, like our ancient ancestors and their experiences and their depictions of UFOs and extraterrestrial life, or at least what they thought was extraterrestrial life, maybe in some cases. Because there are, like there's the manatee that people thought was a mermaid. So I think there are some cases like that, but then there are also some things that are just so out of place. Like I remember I used to watch Ancient Aliens, that I can't remember that guy's name, but the guy with the hair, I love that dude. I'm sure you've watched that, right?
Oh yeah.
Ancient Aliens. Yeah. It's a good show. It's very entertaining. And there's a lot of, it's really fun. But what I thought was like the most interesting thing that I saw on that show was I think it was like drawings and figurines of this guy who looked like he was in a spaceship wearing a spacesuit, and it was real. Like it was, that was pretty unexplainable and weird to me.
Well, as of this year, 2022, there's been a poll conducted, and actually 65% of people who were polled actually believe that aliens do exist now, and that's a huge jump. And 75% actually believe that there's alien life somewhere out in the universe because we've been doing so much space exploration lately.
Right. That's coming from a biologist standpoint. I think it would be near impossible that in our huge universe that we would be the only living, or Earth would be the only place where there are living organisms. They would, there could even be just like one-celled organisms on different planets. Like I think that's actually proven. So you never know. There's at least to me that's proof that there are extraterrestrials, just like one-celled living things on a different planet, but there could be more.
Yeah, with the book that I wrote, it's in two parts. The first part is a science fiction story that I've pieced together from the true abduction tales and witness accounts from hundreds of reports. And so I added all their information to make the story viable so they'd be able to recognize what's in there. And the second half of the book, at the very last, it was of my own encounter. This is how I got interested in this topic.
So you became interested because you had an experience yourself. Were you interested before that at all, or was it just something totally
I thought
new?
UFOs and aliens were just a bunch of BS.
All right, well, let's get into the juicy story. Are you open to tell us about it?
Well, certainly. It took 30 years of silence because I did have there was a stigma to being telling anybody a story like this. I did get in contact with the U.S. military at the time and throughout it, and it seemed like nobody seemed to care. So what happened to me was I was actually 8 years old at the time, and I've read a lot of reports where this is the age where a lot of people have their first abduction experiences and alien encounters. And it only happened after a couple days after my mother had pulled me aside. She'd been on a trip on southern Arizona down a lonely highway with me and her my stepfather, her husband at the time. And they said that they saw a light that came over their car.
Ooh, I'm already getting the chills.
Yeah, and they woke up on the side of the road, and it had been several hours later, and they don't remember pulling over or going to sleep. And I'd never seen her this way before, because she was really worried, like this is what happened to us, and I don't know what to explain. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're just feeding me a bunch of bull BS. All right, playing with me, as a kid. And it wasn't until a couple days later that I had my own experience being taken out of my bedroom at the time. Let's see here.
Taken by a beam of light, or what do you mean by taken?
Well, there was this light that was outside of my window, and at the time where I was living out in southern Arizona, it was at the very edge of the city, so everything past the city limits was all gravel road. And when my mother told me about that story about them having some missing time, and me not believing her, and I thought they were just playing with me the way that parents usually do with their kids. I was taking this craft, and there were 3 beings in that craft, and they spoke by telepathy. And if you ever heard about how that works, is that what they do is they use the language that's already in your head, so it doesn't matter what language you speak, you'll be able to understand them. And when I was inside that craft, if you've been to the website and you see the drawings that are on there under Witchwood, those are actually the drawings from what I had seen and experienced during that time.
I did see a little bit of that, but I didn't really read it, and I wasn't sure if that was drawings of your experience or just your research or not. I didn't read.
Yeah, one of the drawings of the being that I saw when I woke up in the middle of night, and I saw the creature standing inside my bedroom doorway. So I drew that out, and the issue that I had was that being abducted once, it was actually a pretty friendly experience, but it wasn't until the 3rd time that I realized that this was going to be an ongoing event. So every 2 years they would show up, sometime between June and July. I don't know why those months. And there would be an abduction experience, but the ones that followed it, I was just being treated like cattle. There was no communication whatsoever. There was just complete paralyzation. They do their thing and then they leave. And it gets to the point where you actually get scared, you get angry, and you get mad. And
because you have no control.
Yeah, you become traumatized by it.
Yeah.
When I was taken aboard that craft, you'll see inside the drawing, I was held inside this white room, and there were no corners to the room. It was really hard to tell depth perception from it. And I was held in there for quite a while. And then they took me into the front of the ship, and there were 2 other beings, and there was these seats and panels, and they would just form right out of the walls themselves, like it was liquid metal. And I was like, wow, the 8-year-old kid. I'm like, wow, are we in the ship? Are we flying or something? Or what are we doing? And they showed part of the floor and part of the wall. turn transparent and show that we were actually flying about 500 feet over the city. And I was really questionable about that because I said, well, if we're only this close to the ground, everybody should be able to see us if we're only that high.
Right.
So it wasn't that long after that they landed again, and they put me back in my bedroom. But before they did that, they left me a message with I think there was 3 things they had a message for. And I thought it was strange because I was just like an 8-year-old kid. I was like, well, why don't you go tell an adult or somebody who can actually do something about all this?
Sorry, what was the last thing you said? If you weren't a kid, you could actually do something about it?
Yeah, if I could actually do something about this, why don't they tell an adult? And, I've completely forgotten at that point in time that my mother and my stepfather had actually been experienced missing time. But what they did is they had a message, and that was that they were trying to warn that the human species had a significant overpopulation problem. And the problem with that is that that was adding to the issue of humanity creating technologies that were far too advanced, that we weren't mature enough to use wisely. And I can understand that going on with, especially with nuclear weapons. And it was usually in the 1940s and 50s is actually when we started getting into that field that there actually was a lot of sightings going on across the world because of our delving into nuclear technology.
So you think that they're worried about us destroying our planet, destroying ourselves, or possibly destroying other planets? Or do you have any idea?
Yeah, it's the they were telling us that the human species actually wasn't welcome out in space, and I was kind of upset around that last issue since I was actually fond of science fiction, and I thought all the stories of aliens and flying saucers were baloney until that moment because seeing is believing. So I simply asked them, well, why? And their curt answer was that mankind is a dangerous and unpredictable species.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Most people were agreeing with that.
I would agree. I mean,
yeah.
I am 100% in agreements with all of that.
So
I don't want us to go into space because I don't know what we're going to do out there.
So again, I inquired with them. It was since they were apparently far more advanced than humans, why couldn't they just teach us, not to be so violent? Which I thought was a fair question. But their answer was actually quite confusing in saying that we kill one another over make-believe. And it took me several decades of research and study to understand that what they meant was actually religion and racism as the core of our
As soon as you said it, I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's an illogical self-hatred that we have for seeing ourselves as facets rather than our humanity as a whole, and the cruel pettiness that we inflict upon one another.
Yeah, or even killing over love, like your husband cheats on you or something, like that's all make believe. Like it's just, I don't know. It's, yeah, I knew exactly what you meant when you said that. It's wild. Humans are wild. But anywho, keep going with your story.
Well, certainly, because a lot of people, the one question they want to ask is, what is the alien agenda? Why are they here? Why are they visiting? Why are they picking up people? And you've probably heard quite a few stories of how they abduct women. They have you make children through them and then take the children before they were born and let the women go. And I always thought these were really interesting stories. And what it turns out is that it's actually the very same that humanity should have, which is to take care of this island we call Earth and respect the 10 million other species that we share this planet with.
That's our responsibility.
Yeah,
said?
Yeah. We're putting everything in danger over our pettiness.
Yeah, over the fact that we want money, which is fake. Like money is fake. Yeah, it's a shame.
We're the only species on this planet that creates its own creators, and we're the only species that pays to live on this planet.
We are the ruling species on our planet, and we are not doing a good job of protecting the other species on our planet, and that is a damn shame.
Michael, have you heard of so you've been kind of talking, I don't know why I can't, it sounds like I'm drunk. So
are you?
You've been talking, I'm not actually funny. You've been talking about how kind of humans are headed towards their own demise. And I know that one of the reasons that a lot of scientists don't believe that there could be advanced alien civilizations or they don't exist as prevalently as you might think in such a vast universe is because there's like this great filter, that makes it really hard for certain civilizations to make it past And that filter usually is related to like our use of technology. So a lot of scientists think that alien life always ends because we invent technology that destroys us. Or intelligent species are bound to invent technology that
Oh yes,
destroys
yes,
them or too
yes.
much to handle.
Self-annihilation.
Mhm.
I understand that. That's what I put inside my first book when I was reading everybody else's stories, because I was trying to combine. I became fascinated with why people were abducted, why they were chosen, and I don't believe that I was actually quote unquote chosen. I think I was just a side note because of my parents and what had happened to them. And it was actually my mother. Right after that abduction, for some reason, she got several forms of very lethal cancer, and she died within 3 years after that.
Sorry, she had 3 forms of cancer and she died 3 years after that,
Yeah,
after the
that,
abduction.
after the abduction experience. So um, I have no clue as why they were coming and visiting me and just checking up or whatnot, but uh, that's what happened, and it happened for several years. And I thought, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was just seeing things. I was reading what everybody else was saying and how they weren't talking about it. And it wasn't until the very last abduction experience that I had a roommate who actually saw one of them, and that just it blew my mind because that validated everything that had happened to me, and then I knew it was real and it wasn't just in my mind.
So you had an experience and your roommate saw the
Creature, yeah.
the creature. Okay. And it was this, they explained it the same as you saw it and everything, or?
Oh yeah, just like you see in the drawings. These are um, from what I understand, from what I've read inside reports, there's several different species of aliens. You've probably heard of the insectoid ones, the reptilian ones. There's all sorts of different races out there, and these are the alien ray types. The small ones and the very tall one that's usually with them.
The common ones that people see.
Yeah, those ones are actually far more benevolent than what I've heard. Reptilians aren't exactly, and the insectoid ones that look like praying mantises absolutely are not. So there seems to be some sort of um, conflict between the different species as to what they're going to do with this planet. What I firmly believe now is that they're actually just they're trying to protect this planet from us destroying it and ourselves.
So they're not trying to protect humanity; they're trying to protect the planet and the creatures on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you got to think about this, if humanity died,
No, I'm
overnight,
totally okay with that. I'm totally
if
okay
humanity
with that.
died overnight, I think there's 10 million other species that breathe a sigh of
Would
relief.
thrive. Could you imagine if humans just disappeared from the earth? How in 10 years, how beautiful the earth would look?
Oh yeah, there is actually a YouTube series you should watch called After
Yeah,
Humanity.
I
Humans.
watched a couple of those. Yeah,
That's really fantastic.
yeah. I think a lot of the the populations of these species that are dying off would come back. Yeah, it just
Hiram did bring up a good point though about the self-annihilation. How there's a certain point where most civilizations, whatever species they are, would create technology, abuse that technology to the point where it just destroys everything they have. And
Mhm.
a lot of people think about that's what happened to Mars, that there was actually a civilization there at one point in time, and they ended up killing themselves. This is why we have this draw to go back to Mars, and that humanity has actually been on this Earth a lot longer than 6 or 10,000 years, but maybe hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. And as Plato said, every 14,000 years, it seems like humanity's reaches some sort of catastrophic point in the Earth where there's a cataclysm, and then mankind must start again as children. And I think one of the
Well,
greatest losses that we had in mankind in recent history is our the burning of the Library of Alexandria.
oh yeah, I actually
That's
read about that recently.
yeah,
What is that?
We lost a lot of mathematical knowledge when they burned this library called the Library of Alexandria. A lot of calculus was lost, and a lot of people think that all that knowledge that was in that library could have pushed humanity so far, especially, I mean, at least relative to where we are now, because all that knowledge had to be eventually rediscovered. So people think we wasted a lot of time burning that library.
When did that happen?
Whew. I don't remember. Michael, do
let me
you?
look that up.
Like just roughly.
like in the 1600s or something like that.
Okay,
this
because I
was
do
like,
remember hearing about that, but the way that you said it made it seem like it happened recently, and I was thinking that was weird.
Well,
But
recently it was 48 BC.
yeah, and I guess it's kind of recent, given how big and old the universe is.
mhm.
It's not too long ago, but yeah, to us, it has been a very, very long time.
Well, I think that people need to stop. Well, I don't think we need to stop learning, but
Yeah.
I think that we need to. I don't know. I don't know what we need to do. I'm not even gonna speak on that. But we're fucking up. We need to
Yeah.
make some changes, okay?
I
On
have
a spiritual
question.
level, as a collective of humans. And
Yeah.
I just don't think that we it's safe for us to have all this knowledge. Yes, I think that we should be intelligent, we should learn and be educated and all of that, but this high tech knowledge in the hands of humans is just scary, you know?
Yeah. Michael, yeah, for real. Um, and talking about that, Michael, how advanced do you think other civilizations are? Like, is there a type of, I know there's a type of way to measure them, and that's called the, what is it called? The Kardashev scale, where I think it's a Kardashev scale, where we kind of are ranking civilizations based on how much energy they use, and how much they're able to dominate or control their like nearby planets, solar systems,
Yeah,
galaxies.
but that's also completely through a mankind or human perspective too.
A human
So
Yeah.
scale.
So yeah, that's kind of my question. Like, how much do you believe that our knowledge of like aliens is accurate, and how far do you think they're advanced? Like, how much don't we know? Like, how advanced are they? Like, do you think there's a scale for understanding how advanced they are? Yeah, I don't know. Like, if somebody wanted to know if they were all that advanced,
oh yeah,
what would you tell them?
I mean, that's why I took 3 decades of going through all these records and actually interviewing abductees or witnesses or whatnot, and even had a conversation with somebody last night, with a man who had known a woman who was his sister who had actually been abducted, and nobody believed her story. And uh, what I learned from all that information from other people's collective knowledge is that there are actually a lot of the universe is old, very,
Yeah.
very old. And so there's a lot of civilizations that rose and fell. Some killed themselves off, and
Mm,
and they no longer exist. But there are a few, the very, very few that make it through. And even now, they believe that the alien grays that we see now, they have technology that they don't know how to repair because it's so old.
Who
yeah.
does? The aliens or us?
The alien grays that are are widely known of.
It's kind of like you have an Atari video game console, but you don't have the parts for it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And there'll be
on a
times,
bigger scale.
1,000 years or 2,000 years from now, they'll be digging up cell phones and wondering, what are these things
Like, how do we fix these?
from the
How do we
before
make these
times?
work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of that is so interesting, like the rise and fall of civilizations, and just seeing us making the same mistakes and wondering how long we're going to be around for. That's all interesting, and also looking at their technology and how it was very advanced, like a lot of the Egyptian technology with their like light bulbs and things, and their like clocks were just so advanced, but they took a different path than we did with creating this technology and figuring it out. It's very interesting. But
Yeah, we've been fed a narrative through religion mostly, and how we're sold real estate in heaven, with a cash that we'll never be able to, a check we'll never be able to cash. So there's a lot of narratives that are brought out with religion, and instead of using it as a guidance for having morals and ethics, it's been turned around by humanity to
yeah, like how are you going to say?
manipulate.
Yeah, like how is a religion and a Bible going to say? This is going a little bit into religion, but how is a religion going to say that money is evil and then also say that we need to give money to the church? It just doesn't really make sense. And I'm sure that somebody will try to explain it to me. But anyway, just want to say that.
It was even the Vatican this year. They actually, the Pope said, "Yeah, we believe in aliens," which was just a huge shocker for everybody, because before they had been talked to and said, "Oh, well, they were just demons." That's how they were preached. And
Yeah, it's and that's also strange to me that people high in power are admitting that they believe in aliens and they believe in UFOs, and we all thought that they weren't telling us because we would freak out about it, but everybody just like, okay, cool.
Well,
And I
people,
think part of that is timing. This information came out and people were
yeah,
admitting these things during this pandemic where, it just seemed so surreal that we're in this pandemic. And then the 2020 protests, everything was just so everything that was happening was just something that we never thought that we would experience in our
yeah,
lives.
'cause we were,
So if you introduce something that is unbelievable that we all kind of thought existed anyway, it's not going to really, it's not really surprising when we've already been thinking that it was real, that there's
yeah,
a
everybody
possibility.
wants to disclosure from the government because they know that they're holding on to records and information that they're just not releasing to the people. And even with your program tonight, you were going to have on another person, but they were afraid of the stigma, and it's getting over that hurdle, which is what took me so long to do. To come forward and say, "Hey, share your story because we want to listen, and it will make a difference."
hmm that was part of it. Was the we had another guest that was supposed to be on. I won't say his name, but he was a little bit nervous because of, yes, the stigma one, and also because excuse me, he was worried that people are going to pay attention to him.
Mhm.
I don't know who he was thinking would, but he didn't really want to have um, that type of attention on him for knowing certain things or like
Oh
for
yeah,
knowing too much.
those stories of Men in Black, they're actually real, from what I've seen.
Have you had an experience with that?
Oh no, not myself, but
Do you think
there's a
you
lot
will
of
now after being on our show?
no, not after being on the show, but
If I get visited by aliens or Men in Black, I'm gonna be mad at you, Michael. I'm serious. That shit scares me.
so the final story is what people look at aliens as like, well, they're come down here to the planet, they're going to enslave us. Or if you ever seen the Twilight Zone, How to Serve Man, how they turn these stories into aliens being an enemy, uh, um, uh, somebody who that we should be afraid of. And now I see it after all the experiences that I've been through. I finally understand what was going on, and I'm not afraid anymore because what they're trying to do is they're trying to change humanity's method of thinking towards one another, to listening and caring instead of trying to chase after power, money, and greed, which is only destroying us.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. And I just want to say that you are, I don't know you that well. I've known you for maybe a couple weeks now. And you seem like a very understanding, spiritual, very in touch with humanity and very self aware. So I don't know if you were like that before
Oh no,
you.
I changed much
Okay.
drastically, and that's what I write so many books. I think I have like 16 books now that I've written, and in each of those books, no matter if it's science fiction or fantasy, there's always a core into the story about how we're treating each other and the world around us, and to pay attention to that. So that's how I pass on the message that they gave me onto the world.
Okay. Well, I think that's a very good message. And I think what I really got out of this conversation, and it's what I already knew, is that if there is, and I believe that there is life out there beyond Earth. I don't know in which form that is because I haven't seen it, and it's hard to 100% believe unless you've had those experiences yourself. But if that is if aliens do exist and they are beings of higher knowledge, it makes sense that they would want to protect the other living creatures on this earth from humans. That's the biggest thing for me that stuck out in this conversation. And I think that's very important. And I think that it's really something to think about because hopefully people are working on themselves and working on being better people because we're not only going to destroy the other species on Earth, but also ourselves. We're gonna like implode. So we need to, really make some changes. And that's part of the reason why we're here is just to, put a spotlight on these issues that need to be talked about and thought about.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I'm not gonna lie with you. I'm not gonna lie to you, Michael. I'm still very skeptical, but I'm willing to learn about it. A lot of my understanding of aliens has always been, I guess, like as scientific as it gets, sort of. I mean, not not as scientific as it gets. I think I'm more aligned with like the general consensus on aliens of the scientific community, where most people believe that they exist. They're likely not very advanced, and if there are advanced civilizations, it's very likely that we won't ever run into them because of how big the universe is. But you seem to definitely have some ideas about how we've interacted with them already, and how we may not already be aware of that. So
Yeah, what
I'll
I've
be
seen is just a
researching
very
that.
small piece of the pie, but I'd be happy to get you one of the books, and that way you can read through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still very skeptical, but I think most people kind of come from that perspective, right? Because that's kind of what's generally now taught and understood in classrooms and in different spaces. So yeah, so cool. And again, we can find your books on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, on Amazon, it's called Witchwood: The Harvesting, and if you go to greyforest.com and you hit Witchwood, which is on the very front page, it takes you directly to the page with those drawings and different a graph of different types of UFOs that have been seen around the world, and that way people can identify what they've seen.
So- excuse me.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! How many cigarettes have you been smoking, Carissa?
I'm getting over a little cold. Sorry. It just hits me all of a sudden. But so there's
Good,
the
good,
like
good.
the saucer, which is like the craft that people always see, the rectangle, the cigar. Am I missing anything?
Yeah,
As in,
there's all sorts of different. If you go to that graph and you take a look at it, you'll see there's actually been dozens and dozens of different types that have been seen.
so I have one last big question,
Sure.
and that is, you were in the beginning of this episode, you were saying that people go missing. So many people go missing every day. 700, you said, a day?
Yeah, well, you got to think about it that uh, the larger picture is that there's about 1 million people that go missing around the world uh, every year.
And you mean they don't come back? They go
Well,
missing and they
well,
just
these are a vast majority of them are people who are getting out of a divorce, or they don't want to be found. They leaving a job. There's some reason they changed their name. They want to go somewhere else, and they fall off the grid for a reason. The 700 people though are ones that are not explained. These are like a wife and her husband is sleeping in the bed next to her. She wakes up, he's gone. There's his wallet, his clothes, his cars, everything there. He just poof disappears. These are the scary ones where people are just taken and they are nowhere to be found.
So, but you were saying that you have been taken multiple times
Visited
and
multiple times. I was only
visited,
taken once. Yeah.
but they brought you back. You're here to tell the tale. Why do you think that other people are taken and not returned?
Um, this has to do with back in the early part of the 1940s and 50s. There have been a lot of crashed ships that we found. You probably heard stories where the U.S. military just storms in, tells everybody to get away, and they take the vehicle and cover it in a tarp, and everything disappears.
Hmm.
Um, so there have been abductions, and you got to remember that when people are skeptical about this, imagine what we do to a polar bear who sees these strange creatures that don't belong where they are, point a silver rod at them, they fall asleep, they have sleep paralysis, and all of a sudden they're being tagged and examined and samples taken, and you can imagine how traumatic that is for that polar bear who wakes up
Sure.
finally and we're doing the exact same thing to species all around the planet through our wildlife programs.
Right. So you're saying that the people who go missing and don't come back were possibly in a shipwreck or something.
They could have just been taken
I was
off
thinking
off the
that
planet.
if I was taken, I probably would not return because I'd be like trying to fight them, like just saying the rudest stuff if they,
Well, how many people
because
out there would
I don't like being told what to do, So I feel like
well,
I
how
would be
many
one of
people
those.
would give up on humanity and say, "Yeah, just take me anyways. I want to go be anywhere else but Earth."
That's true too. I'd probably say that. I'd be like, let's take me to your planet because you're obviously smarter than a lot of the Earth guys that I've met.
Well, with the people who are taken, I wrote that in because of all the information I got from the stories about uh, how people were not being returned and where they went, and that was the big storyline that I wanted to put into it. So in that book, I used it in the sci-fi where I turned them into humans were being used because they're so violent by nature and savage by nature,
Hmm.
as that they're being turned into use as warriors on alien planets.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, and I also want to mention, is it okay if I mention the collaboration project, possibly, that we're doing? Are you
Oh,
okay with
sure.
that? Oh,
Sure,
just
go ahead.
briefly. Oh, so Michael is also a photographer, and for your books, you use models for those, like live models. And I will be doing a shoot with Michael, and I'll be like a little warrior, maybe a warrior alien in one of those shoots. Who knows?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm really excited
That
about
is
that.
so cool. You should plug yourself in, Michael. How can we
I
find
do
your
have a
art and
space
stuff?
pirate outfit for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what is your website name so that people can find your work? I know that you
great.
have some paintings for sale, and maybe people who are watching and listening can buy a painting of me in a warrior outfit one day.
Yeah,
So
it's greyforest.com, and I'm now working on a warrior women series called Sorrow Blade, which is the last book in the Fairylands edition.
sorry, say that again.
Sorrow Blade, which is the last edition in the Fairylands edition, which is
And
about,
the Fairylands is more like geared toward teens, like young
yeah,
adults.
it's young adult fiction, but there's also a target market for the adults with the fantasy artwork of the fairies, the mermaids, the Atlantis series, and whatnot. So you'll be able to take a look at that on the website. There's a
Very
gallery
cool.
for it.
Very cool. Hiram, did you have any last questions before we head out? You're muted.
No, I said that is actually a lot of information to take in, and I usually tend to have a little bit more background knowledge on the topic, so I tend to have a lot more to say. But Michael, you've taught me a lot, which has left me in silence. It's usually a good thing. Still very skeptical, right? Especially when it
Okay.
comes to facts of, matter of facts, I guess. But I will be reading your book, or at the very least skimming it. I'm not gonna promise I'm gonna read it all. I don't know. I'm really bad at
You're
reading.
very honest.
But
You're very
I,
honest.
yeah, no, it's because you know what? I have ADHD. I can't read. It's not even Michael's book.
I have a
I
problem
just
too,
know.
but audiobooks, that's what I do.
Do you
I'll
have
do that while I'm
do
cleaning.
do you have an audiobook,
And
Michael?
you can also have your phone, if you have like a e-version, you can have your phone read it to you. So
Oh, really?
that's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I do.
There are ebooks there too.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I
but
actually
go
I
ahead.
just want to say that I actually have done a lot of research on this topic as a teenager. When I was 16, I was really interested in researching topics that were considered conspiracy theories, like, corruption in the government, which we know is true, is actually happening now. Extraterrestrials, UFOs, and all of that. So I've always been very interested on the subject and in the subject, and I do believe that aliens exist. I have yet to see a UFO or an alien, and I hope that I actually never see an alien unless it's friendly. But
Oh yeah, I think
so
there's a lot of aliens that actually pass by Earth and just roll up their windows and say, "Keep on driving."
yeah, I would. It's like rolling through the hood. You're like, oh,
Mhm.
cool. Like I'm curious to see what's happening there, but I also don't feel safe going there. Yeah. So I've had a really good time talking with you, Michael. And for those who are watching and listening, go check out his book and go check out his website and to stay updated on all the things that he's doing and all the research he's doing. And can you say your book
Absolutely.
and your website one last time?
Yeah, it's greyforest.com that's GREY. And if you want to click on which with the harvesting, I put the link for that page on the home page, on the landing page, so you can take a look
Great.
at it.
Great. Thank you so much for
Awesome,
your time.
awesome. Yes, thank you so much. Have a great day, Michael. I will be reading your book, or at least skimming a part of it, and learning a
Yeah,
lot
that's
more
just
about
say you're reading
aliens.
it. You say you're reading it doesn't mean you're reading the whole
I
thing.
I can't
I'm
read.
gonna also read it, but it's
I
only gonna be the introduction. No kidding. No, I will read. I will listen to the ebook. I promise.
look. I will do my best to defeat my ADHD and try to get through your book. I haven't read a full book in a while. Like I have a lot of trouble like getting through them. I usually read like short journals or scientific articles, but
Well,
uh,
Michael's book will be the first in a while then,
yeah, I'll give it a try.
because
Like,
little do you know we're gonna start a book club and we're gonna talk about this
Oh,
book. So you
really?
better be knowledgeable. No, I'm
Good.
kidding, but that would be cool. Actually, we should do a live stream
we
book
really
club.
should.
Two people
Uh,
who have ADHD, ADD, starting a book club, to motivate us to read. Let's go. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Base with Duz and Hiram. I am one of the hosts, Carissa Duz.
And I'm Hiram with
And-
our wonderful guest, Michael. Sorry, Michael, to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's fine. Michael Savage.
Michael,
so
I
much
really,
again.
yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing what you did. I encourage you. I really encourage everybody to, go out there and inform themselves, because oftentimes people like Michael are one of the few people, speaking up about things that sometimes governments or other people don't want us to know about. And it might sound ridiculous to some people, but governments have hidden even more ridiculous things than aliens at this point. So,
Yeah.
I definitely recommend people to always have that healthy dose of skepticism. So again, thank you, Michael. I hope everybody listens to you.
And don't forget the message that from beyond is that wherever you are on this planet, try to be a better person today than you were the day before.
Yeah, and be good to your neighbors. Be good to yourself, be good to your neighbors, and be good to the other creatures on this earth. Those are the things that I ask. That's my message. Well, thank you so much for listening and watching, to all of our viewers, and stay tuned for our next episode next Wednesday. Peace.
Perfect. Peace, love donuts.
I didn't say it. Wait, you said it for me. All right, I think we got it in.
Did.
I feel like I've been overusing that, or like I've been doing it for too long, so I'm just like trying to switch it up. But anyway, Michael, we will let you go. My kids are supposed to be in bed right now, so I have to head out. But that was a really awesome interview, and honestly, I wish it could have gone longer, because I feel like we just kind of put our toe into the water and didn't really go too deep. But I guess that was the point, was to not go too into it, because there are a lot of our viewers probably don't believe in aliens. So I think just warming them up to it was good enough. But I wanted to get more into it because I already have a lot of, like I said, I have done a lot of research myself.
A lot of questions. Yeah, with the gentleman who canceled on you today, have him feel free to give me get in contact with me if he desires. So he can give me my contact information, and I can try to help him if I can.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely give him your information. He's a public figure, so I think that's part of the reason. If he was just like some guy who worked, a job where he wasn't in the public eye, he probably wouldn't mind. But
that's why it's a taboo issue and subject with a lot of people, because they experience something that they just cannot explain to themselves, and they absolutely do not want to talk about it to anybody else.
They don't want people to think they're crazy, Yep. I mean, I've seen ghosts, but I only tell people who people who, or even strangers who believe in that stuff too.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing your ghost stories.
All right. Sounds good. All right, well, have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night.
Y'all have a good night. Yes.
Nice meeting you, Hiram.
Likewise, Michael.